coming back to nervous system. So we are on part 3 on our topic of nervous system. I don't know how many people Adrian was missing last week, but we're going to do a quick review of what we learned so far. So what was the main? What did we say? That brain is divided into nervous system. We had 2 major categories of the nervous system. What was it? Nervous system was divided into 2 parts. We said central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And what was the central nervous system divided into? Adrian, do you remember what was the central nervous system divided into? Yes.
The sensory.
No. Central nervous system was divided into 2 parts. Paulina. Brain and spinal cord. Excellent. So brain and spinal cord. And of which we only talked about the brain last week. We said what are the 3 main parts of brain, Benjamin?
Cerebellum, I knew that, yeah. Cerebrum and brainstem.
Okay, you can have a seat. So our brain was divided into 3 parts. Cerebrum, that's the main part. Cerebellum, that's at the bottom. And brainstem. We said cerebrum is the major part of the brain. Cerebellum was the part that helps us coordinate as we walk. And brainstem is the part where we have the major centers in our body that takes control of our heart rate as well as our breathing. Right? We don't make any effort to tell our heart, Annie, let your heart beat, beat, beat. No. Am I telling my heart to beat? It's naturally beating.
You just did.
No.
Nothing, so time.
Breathing. Am I asking myself to breathe? Am I pausing during my class and say, let me breathe? No. It happens naturally, and that is from the center that we have in brainstem. Okay? So today we are going ahead a little bit, and then we said there was something else. The basic unit of brain cell was called as a neuron. So Adrian was not here last week, but we talked about 2 different types of neuron. What was the 2 types of neurons that we learned last week, Rehan? One neuron that takes message from the brain and spinal cord to the exact location where the injury or the issue is happening, and the second neuron takes a message from the area of the injury back to the brain. I said Miss Annie's finger got stuck in the door. We said our finger got stuck in the door. So the message from the finger to the brain and the spinal cord was taken by which neuron?
Sensory.
Excellent. Sensory neuron takes the message from the finger to my brain and spinal cord.
Motor.
And which neuron brings it back?
Motor.
Motor neuron is the one from my brain bringing it back to the mouth and making me scream, ouch, and I'm going to take my finger off from the door, correct? The third type of neuron that we talked about last week was the one that connects the sensory and the motor neuron. And who remembers what was the connecting neuron in between? In between. Interneuron. So interneuron was the one that connects the sensory and the motor neuron. Okay? Now remember, our brain, we said, is made up of neurons. So scientists have been working on to find out how people are intelligent, right? So they do something called as an IQ testing, checking your intelligence quotient. So how do scientists determine who is more intelligent or who is less intelligent? Now what makes a human being more intelligent or less intelligent is everyone have lot of neurons in our brain. Anyone can guess how many neurons we have in our brain?
Oh, I don't want it.
Yes.
6.
6 neurons. No.
6 billion.
Adrian, 6 billion neurons? No.
27 billion.
27 billion?
4 billion.
4 billion.
Wait, how many
no.
what?
Okay, you gotta look.
Million.
6 billion?
6 million.
$100
Trillion.
billion.
Oh, million.
That's like
So each human being has, each human brain have more than 100 billion neurons. So Benjamin, you have more than 100 billion neurons. Adrian, you have more than 100 billion neurons. So does Neil, so does Paulina have greater than 100 billion neurons. Now, what makes Paulina more intelligent than Benjamin, or Adrian more intelligent than Benjamin, or Benjamin more intelligent than Miss Annie.
I don't think that's
Where did you get that from?
So it is the amount of connections that we have. So we said there are a lot of interneurons, right? The sensory and the motor, they connect together and we have a lot of interneurons. So the amount of interneurons that are connecting, so you may have 100 billion neurons in your brain, but if they are not connecting, if they are just spaced out in the brain, it's of no use. The more neurons are getting connected and they are relaying information from one to the other, and more information is getting processed, sorted out, then you are deemed to be intelligent. Okay, that's how intelligence is determined by a scientist.
So if I wasn't born that way, then how can I get that way?
So you process, like we are learning science, right, for the past couple of weeks. Every week you're learning one or the other thing about brain, about neurons. So your brain is listening to all this information, storing, processing it, sorting it out. That's making more and more connections. More and more connections that are being made in your brain, more and more neurons are getting connected. That's helping you to become more intelligent. Now, the brain that we are talking about is divided into two halves, okay? So this is a side view of your brain. Like if you're looking at my brain from this view, you're looking, this is the side view of a brain. But if I bend down like this and you take a view of the brain like this is how the brain will look from the top, okay? This is called axial view of the brain. In that way, when you look, your brain is divided into two halves, okay? Brain is not this color, it's not blue and orange, okay? It's just the internet picture. Do not think it is too orange or blue. Yes?
Your brain is not gray, right?
It is.
It is?
I'll tell you, we're coming to that today. Okay, we're gonna go into that next part.
Man, my
All right.
brother.
So, brain is divided into two hemispheres. So the two halves are called, the first one is called a right hemisphere. And the other one is called a left hemisphere. So how many hemispheres does each brain have?
One. I knew
Two.
everything was black and white.
Rehan, I expect you to write down, not draw, please. Brain is divided into two halves. So how many hemispheres do you have, Marcel, in your brain?
2. 1.
Two. No, two. Every brain is divided into right side and left side.
I knew
Okay?
it. I
So
said
two
that.
hemispheres, right
Yes,
and
we
left.
must only have
So
one.
this part is divided into two sides, right side and left side. When you look from there, from where you are sitting, you think this is left and this is right. No. But this side is the right side and this is the left side. Okay?
Yeah, I knew it.
So this is the right side, this is the left side. So now each side of the brain is divided again into 4 different lobes. Okay? Now each brain, now we are taking just one part of the brain. Okay? Now this part of the brain is divided into 4 different lobes. These are just color coded. This is not how your brain is actually looking.
So
okay?
our brain
You
is
don't have a
gray?
purple, green, pink, blue brain. No.
You have a gray brain?
colors.
I'll explain it to you. So there are 4 different lobes. So you remember, what did we say the top part of the brain is called? The outer covering of the brain is called what? Cerebral cortex, actually. Cerebrum, the outer part of the cerebrum is called cerebral cortex. So that cerebrum is divided into 4 different lobes. Okay? 4 lobes. So the first lobe is, repeat after me, frontal, temporal, occipital, parietal. So how many lobes? 4 lobes. Lorian, can you say the 4 lobes? Occipital, parietal. Okay? Frontal. So frontal is right here in the front of the brain. Right here. You see the front? The frontal. So how many frontal lobes will you have, Marcel, do you think? In your brain?
Uno.
Why? Why uno?
Because there's only one
Abigail,
part.
how many frontal lobe will you have in your brain? 1 or 2?
Dos.
1. Why 1?
It's plural, so it's 2.
2. Why 2?
Because lobes. So, how many frontal lobes?
Uh-huh. Because I said lobes, it will be 2.
It could be more than 2.
No, it won't be more than 2. Remember, this is your brain. I said the brain is divided into the right side and the left side, right?
Also
There are 2 hemispheres. And I'm only talking about one hemisphere. There is a frontal lobe, there is a parietal lobe, there is a temporal lobe, and an occipital lobe.
So
So
there are
same
2.
like that, you have it on this side. There's a frontal, there is a parietal, there's a temporal, and there is an occipital.
Yeah,
So
Adrian, can-
each brain has 2 frontal, 2 parietals, 2 temporals, and 2 occipitals. So how many occipital lobes you have in your brain, Paulina?
2.
2 occipital lobes, 2 parietal lobes, 2 temporal lobes, and 2 frontal lobes. Okay? Now let's see what each lobe does. Frontal lobe, okay? The frontal lobe in your brain is the one that helps you with speech. People talk different languages, okay?
The frontal lobe was like
We
learning.
have our Spanish profesora going right there.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's Spanish. We speak different dialects in India. People speak English, okay? All your speech and your language development happens from your frontal lobe, okay? Emotions, different emotions. We are happy, we are sad, we are mad, okay? We scream, we get upset. All those emotions come from our frontal lobe. Skilled movements, okay? So suppose you are an artist, okay? You're
Not me.
artist who is busy making art.
Not me.
Skilled movements come from the frontal lobe. Sense of smell, okay? Suppose you smell something. The nerve that helps going from your nose to your brain is coming out of your frontal lobe. Now, temporal lobe. Now, everyone can feel this side of your head?
Yeah.
This is called temple. This side of your face is called, no, not here. This is called temple, okay? So this, the brain lobe right behind the temple is called the temporal lobe, okay? So temporal lobe helps with loud sounds or any kind of sound that you hear. So the sound modulation, toning, and actual storing of music. So people, those who are specialized in art, okay, all those storage of music comes from the temporal lobe, and that is where you have stored sense of smell. Suppose you've had a smell when you were a child. You have, your mom probably baked something that you like. You remember that smell, and years later you smell that again, and immediately that recovery of smell comes from this lobe that is called temporal lobe. Okay, so temporal lobe. So frontal is here, temporal is to the side. Next is occipital. So occipital is at the back of your head, right here. Okay, you feel the back of your head?
Yep.
Back of the head. That is called occipital.
Oh, interesting.
That's where your vision is. Okay, that's where you get visual information is from your occipital lobe. And the last one, the big one, is right here. That is your parietal lobe. Okay, parietal lobe is where you get temperature sensation, pain sensation, pressure sensation, touch sensation.
That's where you get the
So
finger
if-
door.
Say again, finger and door sensation. Yes, all that comes from your temporal
So the
lobe.
people that are born
Parietal.
without,
Parietal, sorry, parietal lobe.
so
Yes.
people that are born without, like, that are not able to feel pain and stuff, that means like something's wrong with that part of their brain.
Parietal lobe, yes. People, those who get stroke, last week I said stroke is loss of oxygen and blood supply to the brain. Either there is a blood vessel that ruptured or oxygen is cut off because of a blockage. Depending on which area of the brain it gets affected, that person cannot function that particular area. So suppose they get a stroke of the frontal area, people cannot speak, they cannot process, they can probably hear you, but they cannot speak back. That's because of that. If they get a stroke in the back of the head,
cannot
in the
see.
occipital lobe, yes, their vision gets affected. They will not be able to see
Like forever, or
forever until that. If it is a blockage that can be retrieved and taken care, yes, it will be resolved. If no, Marcelito, forward. Don't distract me. I understand you have finished, but you don't distract others, okay? Now, right side and the left side of the brain. Now, people, those who are, so it depends. Each one sitting here have different strengths. So you can be either a right-sided person or a left-sided person. It's not about how you write, but whether your right side of the brain is dominant or whether your left side of the brain is dominant.
How do we
If
do
you're
that?
if you're someone who is very good in music, singing, or art, that person is pretty much using mostly the right side of our brain.
That's me.
Okay? Right side of the brain. I know my daughter loves music. Okay, she plays piano. She likes to sing. She can memorize song and she can record it in her brain. So her right side of the brain is dominant at all times. Okay, but there are people who are good in math, doing logic.
That's 100%.
That's me.
That's
Correct.
Marcel
That's
and
Rehan.
Rehan.
So Rehan's left side of the brain is functional more. So it does not depend on what side, what hand you use to write. You can be a right-handed person. That doesn't mean the right side of your brain is the most functional one. So it depends on what functions you are specialized in. Decides
And
which.
Albert Einstein had both.
Some people can write with both hands, yes. So right side of the brain functions, you are artistic, you are more creative, you are imaginative, you have an insight, you are more aware about music, 3D forms, and you can better control of your left hand. Those are right-sided
Wait,
brain functions.
3D
So
form.
she is, like Akshara is a right-sided dominant person, right?
What are you?
Me? I'm actually both. I can do some part of music, but I'm good in.
You can
good
write with
in
both
math.
hands.
No, I can do with both.
So
I'm
whatever
both-
part of
I'm
your
both-
brain
I'm
you
both.
use is what?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
most of the time, I'm a left-sided brain person. I'm good with math, logic, things like that. So if you're good with math, you can do mental math, you can do arithmetic, you can do a lot of calculations. You're good in science. All those parts come from the left side of the brain. All right. Now, what is the color of your brain? Remember, we were talking about what is the color of the brain, not blue. I said it's not blue, green, purple, orange. That's in the picture. This is just to make the picture. Your actual brain, from outside, it looks gray in color. Okay? It's actually grayish brown on the outside, and the inner part is pinkish white. Okay? So outer part is grayish brown, and inner part is pinkish white. Now, why is it grayish brown? Who remembers what picture is this?
Dendrite.
Neuron.
No, that's a dendrite right there.
No, it is a neuron. This is nothing but a neuron, people.
Our brains are gray, not pink.
So this is a picture of a entire neuron. Remember, we talked about cell body. We talked about cell body, dendrites, axon, and the myelin sheath, correct? So the cell body that is here is the one that is actually giving the brain the gray color, okay? So that's why the outer part of the brain, I usually mention this to my kids or people who work with me all the time. I'm like, if I'm telling someone something and they are not able to process, I tell them, like, things are not getting into your gray matter. It means it's not hitting your head. It's sometimes a little cruel way of telling people who are not following understanding instructions to me. I
Your
tell
brain
them
is
that
gray? I thought it was
correct.
pink.
No, it's not. Outside part is gray, okay, and it is because of the cell body. So what makes our brain look gray? I said cell bodies of the neuron. So this part of the brain, all the neurons, just the cell bodies coming together, make it. Rehan,
It makes
flip the
it
page.
on.
I want you to write it properly. Okay? So cell bodies of the neurons are making it look gray. Now the inner part of your brain is pinkish white, and it is called white matter.
So it is a little pinkish white.
Pinkish white, but we call it white matter. Now what makes it white? Remember this part of the neuron that is called the axon, that is covered with the myelin sheath. What is myelin sheath made of? Who remembers what is myelin sheath made of? Myelin sheath is made of fat. Okay, so they are fatty deposition on the axon. What does the myelin sheath do? You finished the homework ahead of time. You should know what's a myelin sheath do. Reach out for the book.
Which book
See,
should I read?
we should do homework with understanding.
I did do
That, yeah, so we should remember.
with understanding.
Right.
Just didn't do
Yeah.
the sheet.
What does the myelin sheath do then? Myelin sheath helps transfer information from the dendrites to the axon terminals faster. The electronic signals are passed faster. Okay, so myelin sheath help for transferring of information at the earliest. So the myelin sheath is what is making it look white. Like cell bodies make it look gray, the myelin sheath of the axons are making it look white on the inside. Now this is a CT scan, okay, of a patient's brain that I have up here. Okay, so when you look at the brain on a CAT scan of the brain, you see the darker part outside.
Why do they call it CAT scan?
CAT scans, it is called computer. It's not actually a cat, C-A-T, but it is
Because I thought like
stands
CAT
for.
scanning.
No, it's not a cat going through the scanner. No, it is. There is an acronym. It's an acronym for computerized axial tomography. Okay,
Oh, wow. How do you remember all this stuff?
that's when you go to school. All right.
We do go to.
I know, but
And you
that's
still
that when
remember
you
it.
go to medical school or higher school, you'll learn all those. Okay.
Oh,
Anyways, on the CAT scan, you see these gray areas.
Myelin sheath, myelin sheath.
You see the little gray stuff? That is called the gray matter. And this white stuff that you look on the CAT scan is what is looking the white matter. So when I look at a patient's CAT scan, I know if they have gray matter and white matter. Sometimes they can have stroke in different areas. If there is blood, I can see it. If there is a blockage in there, I can see it. Okay, and then the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain is joined by multiple nerves in between. Okay,
Wait, this-
you don't have to know the name of it, but that's the nerve
Is this
that,
lesson 9 or
block-
lesson
that
10?
joins. Our right side is
I'm
not
so
separate from the
confused.
left. Remember, the right and the left side of the brain are joined together.
How do you spell information? With an M or an N?
Myelin sheath. I'm looking.
I-N.
I found it.
The
I found it. I
T-I-O-N
found it.
is all superseded. Yes.
It is made of tissue. This health allows information to travel more quickly down an axon.
Great. Read it right from the textbook. I thought you were going to answer me from the book
It took you so long.
to find it.
I thought it was in lesson 10.
Anyways,
like there.
now the cerebral cortex, the last thing that we need to know is the cerebral cortex, how thick it is. Anyone knows the thickness of a penny?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you have, how much is it? How much thick is a penny?
0.25.
0.25 what?
Cent-
Millimeter?
centimeters.
No. So if you take four pennies and you put it together, the height of 4 pennies is how much the cerebral cortex is thick. That is only up to 6 millimeters total. So if you stack 4 pennies one on top of each other at home, just try it. The thickness of that much is what your brain, outer
brains
covering
without
of your
points?
brain. No, the outer
That's
covering of your
thick.
brain.
Benjamin must be like 2 pounds.
You be nice and we be respectful.
Whoa, are you
Even to our siblings, okay? Alright, so so total length of a cerebral cortex is approximately 6 millimeters thick, okay? That's how thick they are. Now, nerve is a large bundle. Now, what do we call a nerve? You see this neurons? Once you have a long connection of one neuron connecting to another neuron, when it is as tall as from the floor to the ceiling of this room, it's called a nerve. So nerve is a large bundle of neurons, okay? So it is large bundle of myelinated axons. What? A large number of myelinated axons. So all of them, imagine there is one neuron connecting to another one, to another one, to another one, to another one. That makes it as a nerve traveling from my brain to my pinky toes.
Myelinated axon sounds like it was injected by the myelin sheath.
How many miles per hour does, like, if you say you hurt yourself, like you said, you close yourself for a gym or something?
It's very fast.
How
It's
fast?
instantaneous. Instantaneous. Like from the time you hit your,
75
that
miles per
many
hour?
neurons are working. So the interneurons in between are passing the information so quick. My finger is there. By the time the door closes it, and I'm like, ow!
Because I once, but sometimes you don't feel the pain. Because once I stepped on glass, I had it and I didn't feel anything until I felt the bleeding.
Until you felt the bleeding.
Bleeding shouldn't cause pain.
Bleeding never causes
I know,
pain.
but when I, wait no,
Probably your leg
yeah,
is
when I
calloused.
realized it, because I
When you
usually
your
see
leg
it,
is calloused,
when you
like
see
an
it.
old man. I'm
when
just
I went to
kidding.
like the hockey ice tin, when I was like exercising, and then there was this like
Because you
5-year-old
were
kid,
on ice.
and then there was this 5-year-old kid, no, wasn't on ice, and then he banged himself, and he opened his head. Right here, he was like 6 years old. He opened his head. He didn't feel it. He kept on doing it.
He's
until he
probably
saw the
shocked.
blood was falling on him. He didn't know.
He was probably shocked.
Because the problem is when you hit your head like that, the
It's
brain
more-
is covered by a thick, bony thing. Remember what is it called?
A skull.
Skull or your cranium. Okay,
it
the
can't
big
feel the
one.
shock.
So when you hit it, until you hit that area, so the neurons that are connecting to that skull, by the time it relays the information, probably because he was in cold weather, the blood vessels are all dilated or it is all spread out very quickly. So pain is delayed usually in those environments. So it could be that's the reason.
He didn't.
I don't know, but
He didn't
usually
cry.
pain is instantaneous. You get stuck with a needle or you get stuck with your pencil point, you feel the pain and the response is instantaneous, right? You don't wait until it's like, oh, I poke myself and then I'm like waiting, oh, let it travel to the brain and then it come down and ow! No, it's instantaneous. So because there are so many neurons that are connected together. Alright, so that's only a quick thing on chapter 3 of neurons, nervous system. Next week we are going to wrap up the class.
Was that
We're
it?
gonna, yeah, that's all for this week. This week is quick. We are not done yet. We're gonna quickly review it. Okay?
What?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, it's only 12:10.
Imagine if
We have
pain
5 more
had
minutes.
lag. If pain could lag.
Or you get the pain and
And
you
you're like,
ah.
oh yeah.
So again, we talked about the brain being divided into 2 halves. Both the halves are called as what are they called? No.
Smart and
Hemispheres. How many hemispheres each brain have?
2.
Simka, how many hemispheres do you have in your brain? 2 hemispheres, right hemisphere and a left hemisphere. And each hemisphere is divided into how many lobes, Adrian? Each hemisphere is divided into how many lobes? 4 lobes? You sure?
2 lobes.
No way, Jose.
Who is Jose?
So brain, so very important, brain divided into 2 hemispheres, each hemisphere divided into how many lobes? 4 lobes. What are the name of the 4 lobes?
Frontal, temporal, occipital,
Yes.
parietal.
Frontal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe, and
Parietal lobe.
parietal lobe.
Parietal lobe.
Parietal
Which
Ah, that's
lobe gets
okay.
affected when you cannot see? Paulina. Hey, are you Paulina? Which lobe gets affected if you can't see? Abigail, start thinking if you cannot
The
smell.
back one.
Occipital. If your sense of smelling gets affected. If Rian, you cannot do math, which lobe is getting
If
affected?
you have to smell it, temporal.
right.
Temporal. Okay. Adrian, if you cannot process about temperature, pain,
Benjamin's
pressure, which lobe is getting affected?
The frontal.
No. Frontal is about different languages, speech. Frontal is about memory, all the information. It is the parietal lobe. It's about the temperature. What about math?
You should know this, Rehan. You should know
I know.
Well,
Rehan, come on.
So the right
left
side of
side
the
of your
brain,
brain.
it's
The left side of your
it's
brain.
mainly the temporal
you were
and
talking
But,
about
like,
the right side of the brain. What is the color of your brain? Outside is
Gray.
pink or gray? Inside is
Pinkish white.
pinkish white. What gives it the gray color? What part of the neuron gives it the color? Gray.
The milli.
The milli?
Myelin sheath.
Right there. What makes it gray?
I am still
What part of the
confused.
so neuron
Cell
has,
bodies.
guys, neuron has two parts, right? The cell body and the myelin sheath. Cell body makes it look gray, myelin sheath makes it look white. It's simple stuff that needs to get into your gray matter.
You done? Asian.
I am all done.